Edition of the Art Lewis Show for a Friday morning. It is the 30th of January. And later on, after the 10 o'clock news, Matt Fallon is going to join us. He's got a new position we're going to talk about this morning. Open phones coming up at 11 o'clock after the 11 o'clock news this morning. But we're going to begin this hour talking about cancer and the Carmonas Cancer Institute with one of their noted doctors. He is a gynecologic oncologist, and we say good morning to Dr. Benjamin Mize. Dr. Mize, good morning to you.
Good morning, Art. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being with us. You've been at it a while. How has cancer treatment and cancer outcomes changed from the time you got into the business?
Yeah, I think there's been plenty of advancements. You know, I treat primarily cancers of the female genital tract, so ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, cervical cancer, vaginal and vulvar cancer. And so with respect to these treatments, there's been, the gold standard treatments that have been around for a while that have improved as far as options, with surgical options, transitioning from bigger open surgeries to more minimally invasive and robotic surgeries. Those have become, more commonplace in the standard of care over the last several years. When it comes to chemotherapy, we've gotten better with chemotherapy. We've gotten drugs that, are more effective with less side effects. And beyond that, we've got more targeted therapies now. The biggest advancements, say in the last 10 years or so, have been more targeted therapies for ovarian cancers, as well as the immunotherapy that can apply to multiple cancer sites. Those are probably the biggest advancements.
Does that include proton therapy?
That's right. So, when it comes to radiation therapy for certain cancers, proton therapy is another option that we offer at the Karmanos in Flint that allows to give more tailored doses of radiation to a specific tumor while sparing, the normal tissue surrounding that. So it ends up being very highly effective with less of the side effects.
So, is it realistic to say you can cure the cancer, or is it just a life-extending treatment?
Yeah, there are several cancers that I treat that are curable. The most common gynecological cancer is uterine cancer, and the majority of uterine cancers tend to be, very early stage with a good prognosis associated with that. And a lot of times we're able to cure uterine cancer with just surgery, or sometimes surgery plus small doses of radiation. There are certain early stage cervical cancers that are also, amenable to cure, as well as early stage, ovarian cancers, vulvar cancers. A lot of it has to do with the type of cancer and the stage, which, brings up the need for people to be undergoing the appropriate screening tests and the appropriate, follow-up with their healthcare providers.
A lot of cancers we hear, they say it's preventable, stop smoking, maybe you won't get lung cancer, adjust your diet, so forth, so on. Are any of the gynecological cancers preventable?
Oh, for sure. I think the most preventable cancer that we have is cervical cancer. Cervical cancer is almost always related to the human papillomavirus, the HPV. And we have had good vaccines available now for about 20 years. that with the appropriate vaccination, we should be able to prevent the majority of cervical cancers. And then even if you have not been vaccinated for cervical cancers, through PAP testing and HPV screening, we can detect the majority of cervical cancers in the precancer stages before they even develop into cancer. And so cervical cancer is highly preventable. As far as the other cancers that I treat, ovarian cancer, we do not have a good means for preventing that for the general population. Uterine cancer, because of its relationship to obesity, certainly anything that can lead to a healthier lifestyle and reduce the rate of obesity will also have a significant impact in preventing uterine cancer.
Do these cancers stay local, or do they metastasize?
So, when we're talking about cervical cancer tends to stay locally for a longer extended period of time. And so it tends to be only people who have significantly delayed care or who have a more aggressive type of cervical cancer who end up with metastatic disease. Uterine cancer is a similar thing. The majority are, fairly slow growing, slow spreading types of cancer. And so we are able to, detect and treat the majority of uterine cancers in the early stage. I think the scariest one is ovarian cancer, just because we do not have, a good way of detecting it early. And women don't tend to have symptoms until, it's already spread beyond the ovary.
Yeah. We keep going back to this testing. How important is regular checkups, gynecological checkups for a woman, and how often should they have them?
Yeah, I think, the recommendation is that women should be having at least an annual pelvic examination. That involves the pelvic examination as well as, a thorough history. That would include, family history as well, because there are certain, family history markers that can point us to patients who are at increased risk of cancer from that standpoint. But during those, annual follow-up visits with your OBGYN or with your primary care provider, the most important, part of that screening is, the PAP testing and the HPV screening, because we can detect and prevent, the majority of these cases of cervical cancer.
And let's say a woman gets her pap smear and her early checkups, and you detect, let's say, cervical cancer. What's the range of treatment? How long does it take?
Yeah. So if we're dealing with cervical cancer in the early stages, a lot of times we're able to manage that surgically. And so it may be as simple as a hysterectomy or a radical hysterectomy, and that may be all a woman, would need to treat that. It's the women who come in with the more either locally advanced stages that would require a more extended course of radiation therapy along with chemotherapy. And that treatment course usually runs over a 7-week or 8-week period of time. And for the unfortunate women who end up with metastatic cervical cancer, we'd be looking at, more extended times, 3 or 4 months of chemotherapy.
So it really is, it's a multiple discipline treatment, isn't it? I mean,
That's right. For the majority of of the gynecological malignancies, it's a multi-modality, different services are involved. For cervical cancer, it tends to be surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation that all have their roles. For uterine cancer, the same thing. For ovarian cancer, it tends to be limited roles for radiation, but surgery and chemotherapy are the staples there.
If a woman has been diagnosed with a cancer, can she come directly to Karmanos, or does she have to have a referral?
For sure. I think, the majority of our patients, have been seen and undergone a workup with their, OBGYN provider or with their primary care provider. And so they are referred, but certainly you can go directly to McLaren.org/Flint Cancer and work on scheduling an appointment through that, or our office number is 810-342-3800. And we can work on getting you set up with an appointment that way as well.
All right. We had a caller ask a question. I don't think I've ever seen a question like this before. It says, yeah, can you get cancer from chemotherapy? Is that possible? And if so, how often?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question. Chemotherapy can certainly have its effects on the bone marrow tissue that is making red blood cells and white blood cells and platelets, that sort of thing. And so, down the road from your chemotherapy treatment, it is rare, but it is possible that you could develop a secondary leukemia or something like that. Mm-hmm. The incidence rates are really low. And at least for my patients with ovarian cancer, it is, ovarian cancer is by far the bigger concern, and the chemotherapy is effective. And so if the patients are, doing well from an ovarian cancer and they're, 5 or 6 years down the road and they develop, one of the leukemias, that's something that we can usually manage.
So it goes back to, like all things in medicine, risk reward.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's not a single thing that we do that doesn't come with, some risks. And so, important to have those risk-benefit conversations with your doc before embarking on any sort of treatment.
Well, Dr. Mize, look, I want to thank you much for spending the time with us this morning. Anything else we need to cover before we let you go?
No, thank you for having me on.
Anytime.
I think the most important thing that I can leave the listeners with is, as we hinted at, there are, preventable cancers that I deal with, and primarily, cervical cancer. And so I want to get the word out that if you, have a child between ages 11 or 12, that's the ideal time to get the HPV vaccine. So get in with your a pediatrician for that. And even if you missed that time window, the recommendation is to get that up to age 26. And so very important to do that. Very important to make sure you're up to date with Pap test screening as well, because nothing would make me more happier as a gynecological oncologist than to not have to treat anyone with cervical cancer. And I think that's a possibility in the future.
Well, Dr. Mize, again, thank you very, very much for being with us. Do it again sometime. Interesting.
All right. Appreciate it, Art.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye
right,
now. Dr. Benjamin Mize from the Karmanos Cancer Institute, gynecological oncologist. We thank him for joining us. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we hope to be talking to Antonio Giascia. He is an expert on pharmacy benefit managers, the guys in between your pharmacist and the drug manufacturer, and what they have to do with pricing. Be an interesting discussion, and we will hopefully have that for you when we return.
How do you afford the things you need?
All right, we're back with you here on WSGW. And as soon as we get that cleared, we will introduce you to our next guest. So we're going to talk about something pretty important this morning. Hello. It's nice music. All right. I think Antonio, our guest, is on hold. So we will wait for the music to end. Anyway, let's also remind you that after the 10 o'clock news, we'll be talking to Matt Fallon this morning. He'll be in to talk about his new position. And in the meantime, let's see if I put it on hold and come back to it, if that changes anything. No? All right, well, we'll just wait for the music to end. As Antonio, who we're going to talk to here, is going to talk about pharmacy managers that are between you and the drug companies and your pharmacist when you buy. Hello, there we go. Nope. Call back. All right, let's try it this way. All right, good morning. You're on the air. Is this Elisa or is this Antonio? It's gone. Let's try it again. Okay. Michael's picked it up. That will get it set up real quick here. We're having issues getting the call on. All right. There we go. Let me go to the phone here and say good morning, Antonio. Is this you?
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Tell everybody your name, Antonio.
Antonio Chacha.
And you specialize in what?
I am a professional drug pricing nerd.
Gotta love it. There is, when we go to a pharmacist and we get our drugs, to me, it has always been one of the most mystifying things as to how they're priced. And what I've come to realize is there's a lot of people between me and the drug company, aren't there?
No question. It's a all-you-can-eat buffet of intermediaries and middlemen. Not that they're necessarily bad, because I know that's kind of a negative term, but in a world of bloated and inflated prices, there is a lot of steps along the way to yield what might be a fair or reasonable price at the pharmacy counter or a total ripoff. And understanding that labyrinth of intermediaries can be what actually helps insulate either an employer or a patient from getting overcharged at the counter.
So a drug company makes the drug. The pharmacist retails the drug to me. Who's the guy in between?
Well, there are several, but the main pillar is the pharmacy benefit manager, or the PBM, which is essentially the insurance company for your medicines. They determine which medicines will be covered under your benefit plan. They tell you what pharmacies you can go to get the benefit of that coverage, and they'll determine how much you are charged for that medicine and how much the pharmacy will be paid.
I've never understood. For example, I take some very basics. They're all zero copay when I go to the pharmacy. I have 3 pills I pick up, and I don't pay for any of them. Well, my insurance pays for it, but I also happen to have a very low-price insurance policy as part of my Medicare. I don't have an Advantage plan. I have a separate policy. but it always fascinated me. How do I get a drug in my hand for nothing?
Well, I think, as you well know, nothing is free, especially in a world of.
I knew you were going to say that.
So, you are fortunate, at least on its surface, that you are insulated at the pharmacy counter from drug pricing dysfunction. When you see the $0 price tag, I'm sure that conveys some semblance of a surety that you have a great plan. The problem is that drug pricing dysfunction doesn't go away just because there's a $0 sign at the pharmacy counter. It means that drug pricing dysfunction is being paid for in other ways. And so more often than not, the sins of our drug channel end up having a massive bill, and the bill comes due. It just so happens that it's taken out of your premiums or your paychecks, or let's say you as a taxpayer, if it's a government program, rather than necessarily manifesting itself at the pharmacy counter.
Antonio, can you hang on? I got to take a break, and then we'll be back. We're talking to Antonio Chaka, and we're talking about pharmacy benefit managers and the cost of drugs and all of those good things. And as he admitted up front, he's a pricing nerd when it comes to drugs. More ahead. Let me take a moment to talk about Quick Lane Freeland. You should be your tire dealer as well as where you go for all of your routine maintenance. Quick Lane Freeland, where they sell tires at just $5 over cost. And if you ask, is there a difference between winter tires and regular all-season tires, the answer is yes. And I've asked John from Quick Lane Freeland to tell us about that.
Hello, Art. Yes, winter tires are made with a pliable rubber compound that includes silica to stay flexible and maintain grip in freezing temperatures, unlike harder all-season tires which stiffen and lose traction in the cold. This flexible compound allows the tire to better conform to the road surface, providing superior grip and traction on snow and ice to keep you safe.
Thank you, John. Stop into Quick Lane Freeland, have them check your tires. And also have them check your cooling system, because with the cold weather we've had outside, that cooling system is really important. Make sure your antifreeze is up to date. It all happens at Quick Lane Freeland, part of the McDonald Ford complex. While you're there, take a look at all the Ford products that are now out, as well as their pre-owned lot. McDonald Ford and Quick Lane Freeland, two names to help you with all your automotive needs in 2026.
Gotta go.
Pays more than its proverbial fair share relative to other industrialized nations. But I think that would be selling the problem somewhat short if we left it at that. Other countries take a very heavy-handed approach to access and affordability of medicines in their countries with trade-offs. Essentially, the countries go to the manufacturers and say, look, if you want to sell your drug here, this is going to be the price. Well, if the price is too low, manufacturers will essentially deprioritize access of those medicines in that country. In some instances, drug companies understand that country may not have the financial means to give essentially top dollar, whereas here we've exhibited a greater tolerance for being priced a little bit heavier. One of the other challenges in the United States is that we don't set prices in a competitive environment in the United States, meaning there are very poor incentives for manufacturers to do what happens in other markets, where if you or I were competitors selling, let's say, tools at a hardware store, you and I would have to either compete by improving our service or lowering our prices to attract people to visit either of our retail stores. Well, that's because we price things in traditional markets so that individual consumers will be enticed to purchase those products. In the drug channel, people don't really buy medicines. Insurance companies and PBMs do, and government programs do. And those systems operate not necessarily on the actual prices, but operating off discounts on prices. So manufacturers don't compete by lowering prices in the United States. They actually compete by inflating prices and increasing the discounts and rebates along the way.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a lot of truth in that in the entire medical profession, because, and I've said many times on the show, when was the last time you saw a hospital advertise, come stay with us because we're $10 cheaper than the guy down the road? It's come stay with us because we have all the bells and whistles. And it's akin to what's happening in the drug market, isn't it?
And wouldn't that be nice if you had that kind of transparency to understand that it would be a $10 difference?
Yeah.
In our research, we can see the same companies pricing the same drugs on the same days at the same pharmacy with thousands of dollars of difference from one to the next. This isn't just a PBM problem. It's an everybody problem. When the prices are really bloated and ridiculous, we have to rely on negotiators or intermediaries to provide us essentially a true market clearing rate. Whether it's fair or not, the data suggests that there are thousands of dollars of difference between the worst buyer and the best buyer in the marketplace. That's not a signal of a functional marketplace. It's a signal of price discrimination and a supply chain trying to extract whatever it can out of every single transaction. Again, all enabled by the inflated nature of pricing in the first place.
Does that say to me then that it doesn't make any difference if I shop around from pharmacy to pharmacy? Am I going to find the same inflated price from one to the other?
It actually means the opposite. We see it is a casino. Every time you get a prescription at a pharmacy, depending on the medicine, the benefit plan, all those things, you have no idea whether or not it's going to come up as a win or a loss. Furthermore, there are some pharmacies, there's a growing number of pharmacies in the marketplace that are unplugging from our insurance and PBM traditional pharmacy market. You have cash pharmacies like independent pharmacies across the country. You have Mark Cuban's Cost Plus Drug Company, where rather than accepting traditional insurance and essentially playing the inflated list price game, those pharmacies are operating on a cost plus model where they say, look, I bought the drug for $5. My fee is $10. There's the price, $15 total. Well, everything else might be discounted by 90% in the traditional insurance market, but the starting point might be $1,000 list price, and a 90% discount will still be a ripoff relative to that actual $15 cost. So shopping around, especially in non-traditional, non-insurance-based pharmacies, you could see 30-40% savings in aggregate just based upon the numbers that we reviewed at Cost Plus Drugs.
Can you hang on one more segment?
Absolutely.
Good. We'll be right back. Antonio Chaka, our guest, as we talk about the cost of those drugs that you get every time you go to a pharmacy.
Hey, it's Charlie Root here.
Guest who happens to hold degrees in communications and political science from Ohio State University. We won't hold that against you, Antonio. Even just had to get that in.
Of course.
We are, I mean, we're bombarded with pharmaceutical advertisings. This drug will cure this and that. And, of course, it's 20 seconds of what it'll do and 40 seconds of how it'll kill you. And they do that to protect themselves. But we also get these commercials for these cards that you can carry that are supposed to be discount pharmacy cards in place of or in accordance with your insurance, like GoodRx and things like this. How do they work, and are they worth it?
Well, relative to the legacy prices, like if you walk into a typical pharmacy, right, meaning not one of the cash-based ones that I mentioned in the previous segment,
right,
the incentives of the marketplace are such that they're charging hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for drugs that could actually be procured for $10, $20, $30, okay? And that's partly the pharmacy's fault, but trust me when I say it's a system problem. Everybody is incentivized to charge sky-high prices because the way the payment model works is you're heavily penalized if you do not. So if you walk into a pharmacy, a traditional pharmacy, and you don't have any coverage, then you're going to see those ridiculous prices that nobody was really intended to pay. In those instances, those discount cards could provide substantial savings relative to the bloated sticker prices that no one's supposed to pay. But be clear, just because you hear the word discount doesn't necessarily mean it should be the same thing as an actual fair deal. oftentimes discount cards are also playing games with price, relying on the fact that consumers assume that it's going to be a positive, but not necessarily translate into something that would truly be a competitive market clearing